Yes, I'm recording.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
All right. Okay. So we're going to start by talking about the standard plans and what happens this time of year. And so I think let's just go through and have you each tell me what you know or what you're looking to get out of this discussion and what your comfort level is with what happens this time of year. So who would like to start?
Well, Lorna, this is Lois.
Okay.
I'm just curious. I'm hoping to maybe pick up some tricks or something from somebody else who has a large number of communication plans to build. We added more market segments this year, and it's just overwhelming at this point to try and build these because we don't copy everything over from year to year, and we rename all of our communications each year to be consistent with the year that we're recruiting. So, for instance, all of our communication items this year start with the number 19 for the 19 recruitment year. So it's a huge job anymore, and I'm just wondering if anybody has found any workarounds for making that a simpler process.
Oh, wow. Okay. I don't think I have anything. It's just a very manual process, and we know it is labor intensive, but that just makes it that much more labor intensive if you customize your communication names for the entry term or the year that you're recruiting. So, gosh, Lois, I'm not sure that there's anything that, unless someone else has something to offer.
Okay. No, this is Matt, and we do not rename our communications every year. We'll roll over the same plans and make updates based on year to year and semester to semester. But yeah, we definitely don't do that. That's a lot of work, Lois. I'm sure you know.
Yes, it is. Lorna.
Yeah.
Lois, what have you found the benefit to be for that?
We have a lot of students who may apply for 3 years in a row before they actually come. So we want them to get the newest information, but we also, let's just say we send an intermediate piece out, one of our first published pieces. So we don't want them to get that piece 2 or 3 times in a row. So we exclude in our communication plans, we put logic in that communication to say if they've received it previously for a previous year, not to send that. We also build our plans so that they're specific to each term, because again, we may have somebody who applies for spring term but doesn't come until fall, they reapply for fall. So we try to exclude those communications that they've already received for a number of reasons, but and then we can also, by doing that, we can also stop sending those communications. Instead of turning off those plans, say for spring, once spring semester's over, we just stop sending those communication items that are earmarked spring. That saves us from having to go in and turn off all those communication plans immediately. But it also allows us to push those spring plans forward when we need to try and get everything in before that term begins.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But Lorna, I started to ask back when we had Fox Pro, we could actually build the plans in Fox Pro, and that made it a lot easier. Is there any way to do that in SQL?
Well, there is. Yeah, you could, I think. I think, or you might copy them forward and then do a replace. But actually, no, that would be tricky. I mean, it's just tricky to do anything within the database directly. So it's not just tricky, it's risky to do that.
Okay.
And you don't really have access to, like you did with the Fox Pro tables, do you?
No, but I think I could at this point, but I wouldn't be proficient at it by any means.
Uh-huh.
So it would be a learning process, but I thought if there's a trick to that, but I digress. That's what I know and what I need.
Okay. Well, if you did, oh gosh, there's a.
Is there static on this?
Yeah, there is.
Okay. Well, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll mute as soon as I finish this comment, and then you won't hear the static
Okay.
anymore.
Okay.
Lois, I was just thinking, just keep yourself from having to make as many logic statements. You can use the contains instead of equals for the, so communication name contains the word view book or contains the word brochure instead of, having to say, build a different logic statement for each year or term.
It's a little different than that, the way we do it, but yeah, we use different types of logic statements depending on what we're doing. We have 50, 60 items in our some of our communication plans.
So if you did a replacement in the SQL, using a SQL statement, you'd evaluate against the entry term in the record, because every record in the standard plan has an entry term associated with it. So I was just thinking about how that SQL update statement would work, and it'd have to evaluate against the entry term. And then you could be confident that you're updating the right record in the database, if that made sense.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. That must be a headset. I think that's your headset, Anna. I guess that's what I conclude. Okay, Roxy, are you on with us too? Is Roxy with us? Actually, we have quite a few.
Yeah, I'm here.
And I guess I'd just like to know why you joined us too. Do you have anything that you're looking for in particular?
My year ends are on Monday, so I was just joining to see if there was anything new I could pick up.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, I can just kind of go through the process for you all, if that would be helpful. Just kind of reiterate how it all works at this time of year when you're talking about the standard plans and what you need to do. Would you like for me to do that?
Sure.
Okay. Sure. So the first thing we like to see that you do is to go in and run a report, because it's kind of it's a black box, right? You don't really know which plans are active and which ones aren't. And so it's often a surprise to clients to realize that they have older entry terms that are still active within their system. And if you're not renaming your communications, then of course they're all mixed in together, right? So that becomes problematic. So here's the report that we'd like to recommend that you go ahead and run. It's print all plans. It's at the bottom of the print standard plans menu options. And you're going to just preview it. I don't recommend that you send it to the printer, because generally it's one, or there might be 2 plans per page, but it's way many pages that you probably don't want to print. And so you can see, for me, I think I have 98 pages. So this is obviously our test instance, so we have a few standard plans in here. But this is the best way for you to see which plans are active. Now, this report is a little bit cryptic to read, so just a heads up that with this code that you see that says 2003-1, that's the entry term. The market segment is going to be just to the right of that. And then the stage is going to be to the right of the market segment. The good thing about the plan is, what I like about this report is that it gives you a printout of the logic statement. So if you ever needed to refer to that, what that logic statement is, and you didn't want to have to go into the plan to see that, then this is the best way for you to see it, the most efficient way for you to see your plan. If you choose the print option thinking that you can print it to a PDF, you'd be wrong. It goes immediately to the printer. So just another heads up about this report and whether you really want to print it or not. If it's 10 pages, it might be worthwhile, but if it's as many pages as this is, then you really don't want to do that. You might just want to write down the entry terms that are active in your system. Okay, any questions about this report? Do most of you use it? I'm hoping that you do.
Yes.
I think that, yeah, okay. I think it's really a good way for you to get a big picture view of what's going on in your system. Okay, so I know that I have plans that are old, and if for any reason someone goes in and opens up one of those 2003 students, that plan has the potential of being inserted into the student's record and coming due and generate mail. So there's no easy way to delete those plans, and so we want you to open up the plan, remove all the items, and run the update. But before you get to that point in this process, what we want you to do is to select the plan that is the farthest out in this active plan, one for which you have communications, that is the farthest entry term out. So maybe you're only recruiting for fall 2019 and you're not recruiting for fall 20. But if you are recruiting for fall 2020 and you need to create a new plan for fall 2021, then we want you to choose that entry term first. We don't want you to start with fall 2018. We want you to go to the entry term that's the farthest out and start copying these forward. And the reason for that is because otherwise you're going to be clobbering plans that you aren't ready to clobber. Did that make sense? I hope that made sense. Okay, so I have one plan for 2020, and this was appropriate for my sophomore students for fall 2018, as I was recruiting in 2018, but now I'm ready to move it forward so that juniors or sophomores get it in my 2019 recruiting year. And so the way that I do that is to open up the existing plan, to hit the copy to icon, and that's the icon that's typical for any kind of copy process. I select the entry term that it's appropriate for, and maybe I have more than one. It's possible that I might. I can select more than one if I want to. I select the market segment. Most likely you're going to select the market segment that is for the existing plan, and you can see it in the header. So if you need to remind yourself of what plan you're in, that's a good way to refresh your memory. Oops, didn't mean to do that. That's if I wanted everyone. And then the stage, which is more than likely going to be the stage of the existing plan. And then when I hit the run button, it tells me to be sure that I understand that it will override an existing plan if I follow through on this process. And then it gives me a heads up about the fact that I selected 2 entry terms, a market segment and a stage. And so if I complete the process by saying yes, now I've just created 2 more standard plans. And that would be for fall 2021 freshman prospect and fall 2022 freshman prospect. Okay, so we want to see you copy all of those forward, starting with the entry term for which you have the entry term that's the farthest out, and then moving back towards the current entry term. Okay, so any questions about any of that? Now if I go into fall 2020 and my freshman prospect, now I'll see that I have that same plan in here. And now I can go ahead and add other pieces, or I can edit this accordingly. Okay. Now, assuming that you've moved all of those standard plans forward, and you're ready now to go back and retire your plans that are no longer active. And just a heads up about this too. Are you still, excuse me, I have to clear my throat here. Are any of you still actively sending out fall 2018 communications to students?
Yes, we are.
You are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then in that case, do you have, are they the confirmed and enrolled or decision?
They would be, well, it depends. I mean, if we just sent one out today for a decision, so it's kind of late, but it was a rare circumstance.
Okay. Well, I don't have a plan in here for decision. So let's say, let me just open up a plan that I have. So this time of year, if you are still recruiting students for the current entry term, then of course, then this is, you know, fairly logical. You probably already thought this through, but you're going to want to evaluate against the number of days in your plan and make, consolidate those.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So then you're not really ready to retire this plan, but maybe you're ready to copy it forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so before you consolidate those dates, you probably want to go ahead and copy it forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the timing, I'll just kind of reiterate about this, is the timing is really important on all of these processes. So you actually might want to write down what you're going to do first, copy forward, and then you're going to consolidate any existing plans that are still active. And after you've copied it forward, and then after that, you're going to go back and evaluate against the plans that are no longer active. So I think that all just makes sense. But if you get a little click happy and you don't think it through first, you could make extra work for yourself. Again, it's warning me that I'm going to overwrite an existing plan if one exists. Okay. Now I can go in here and change those dates because I've already copied it forward. Okay, now let's say you're ready to retire it, you're done with this plan, you don't want it coming due anymore, then it's really, this is also labor intensive, and we know that it is. But at this point, it's just a matter of deleting each one of these. Well, that was interesting. Just deleted everything. Huh. Let's see. Let's do that again. Okay, let's see if this happens again. Yeah, that's generally how it works. One item at a time. Delete, delete, delete.
Lorna, it's Lois. I do have a little trick for this, for deleting the plan.
You do? Okay, wonderful.
I do.
Okay, cool.
So we have a lot of plans. So going and doing this with 50 items in each plan ever. So I figured out if you plan a full plan, an old one somewhere, and add one item to it that, say, you create this initiated plan, save that. Then you delete one plan and put that in there. That's the only thing that's in there. Save it, and then you can copy that plan into every plan that you have to delete
and
that you want to empty. And then you only have one.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Copy that one plan with one item. To copy that, all of the plans that you want to delete. And it will replace the items with just the one that says deleted plan or whatever. Then you only have one item in each plan.
Oh, you know what? I recall. Thank you for sharing that. You can't add a campus initiated. It would be great if you could, but so it
can be anything. It can be anything that you want. It replaces a full with one item. You only have to go back in and delete one item from each plan.
Did that make sense? Would everyone like for me to show what Lois is talking about? Anyone?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Lauren. And I think that sounds really interesting, Lois. That and you're replacing an old plan that you want to retire, but replacing it with one item, so you then only have to delete the one item. That's pretty cool.
That's correct. That's what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to go into my, and I just was working on. I'm going to remove that and but then you still have to run the update, don't you? How do you run the update, Lois?
Well, when I run the update, I create and run the update one time usually.
Oh, okay.
But even if you do it this way, you replace all of the items in a particular plan with one item that's left to delete. So even if you go in, when you go in to delete that one item, you can simply run it then on that particular plan. It still takes a lot less time than deleting every item in every plan.
Okay. Okay, so I chose all the entry terms I know are no longer active, and then I chose all my market segments and all my stages. And so if I click the run button, that means it's going to replace all of those inactive plans with the deleted plan item. And now, this will be interesting. I'm going to say no here. If I go back and print all plans, I'm still going to have those old plans, but now they all just say deleted plans, right? For the entry terms that I selected. So that's really clever. Thank you, Lois, for sharing that. If that's helpful for anyone, I think it could be. The only thing is that it's not going to remove those communications until you run the update. So you're going to have to follow up with that. Do you use the update student plans?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the full update as opposed to the individual update that happens in the individual plan. Okay. Now, the difference, the other thing you probably know, but it's just a reiteration, is that if I run the update in the standard plan, let's show you the difference between those two. If I come back in here, freshman applicant, let's go back to my plan. If I run the update in here, it's really just evaluating against students who have an entry term of fall 2018 market segment of freshmen and applicants. So that happened really quick. It just removed all the items out of those students. So it's just that one plan. Now, if I come in here and run the update student plans, now you can see it's evaluating against all the standard plans. And so it can take what, hours, Lois, would you say, if you have a lot of plans?
Yes, I run it overnight.
Yeah.
When I'm ready.
Yeah, so just be aware that this is a really lengthy process. But the good thing is, if I decide to change my mind, I have to do something else or whatever. If I hit the escape key, it should stop the process. Huh, okay. Well, it's going to prove me wrong today. Okay, it doesn't want to stop the process. Sorry about that. Might have to, there we go. Okay. So it didn't really like that. I've never seen that error before, but anyway, you can abort that process if you need to.
It may be the combination, Lorna, of us being in a Zoom meeting, or possibly for the reason for that error message.
Okay, so actually that brings us up to the end of the half an hour. Any more questions about or thoughts about the standard plan and what happens this time of year? We can
no, that was helpful.
segue in. Okay, good. Now let's talk about the year-end process. So this is the time of year when you log into your Recruitment Pro and you see that the year-end process needs to take place. Are all of you seeing that?
Yes.
Okay. So why do you see that, and what does it mean? And again, I'll just go through the basics of this, and if you have questions, please just stop me and we'll talk about what your thoughts are. If you have some extra tips that you want to offer, that's really helpful for us too. So what you want to do is you want to go into your Edit Statistical Years listing so you can see how the statistical years are set up in your system. And generally, they begin around the end of August or in early September. And what does that date signify? It's a date that signifies that you are closing out the previous recruiting. You haven't necessarily completed it yet. Most likely you haven't completed it yet for your fall 2018 students, but you're now actively recruiting for fall 2019 or spring 2019, and you're starting the new year. And so what does that mean? It means that for every student in your database that you're recruiting, depending upon how many years you've recruited them, there's an enrollment history record for every recruiting year against that student. So if you've been recruiting that student for 3 years for fall 2018, then you have 3 enrollment history records for that student, one for 2016, one for 2017, one for 2018. And each one of those enrollment history records tells the program what activity, what happened in the recruiting cycle for that student over the course of that particular year. And when you reach the end of a recruiting year, the enrollment history record is retired. And then if you're still recruiting them, a new recruiting enrollment history record is recreated for that student. So closing out the statistical year ends the update to those enrollment history records. So in this case, it's 2018 enrollment history records. But here's the piece that is really important. So yes, you've started the 2019 recruiting year, but because you haven't closed out 2018, and because you're still active with those students, you're not really ready to close out and create that new set of 2019 enrollment history records. What you need to analyze on your fall 2018 entry term is the last entry date on that entry term. And what that tells the program is that I've told the program that by the end of September, by September the 30th, I am done with updating my student records for this particular entry term. And so why is that important? Because especially in regards to your confirmed and enrolled students, those students need to be updated by September the 30th. Now your date will be different, so you want to see what that date is in your system. So I'm going to come in here and make sure that I really have updated my students accordingly. Now I have a really small database, so this won't reflect what you're going to see in yours. But maybe you come in here and look for stage 600 students and you don't have any. So that gives you a heads up that you need to update the stage history for those students. But if I were past September the 30th, I want to make sure that the date on that enrolled stage history date for my student isn't past September the 30th, because if it is, then it's not going to be recorded in that student's enrollment history record. And it's not something that you would see in the student's file, because I can see that the stage history looks good here, but I'm not aware of that enrollment history record. So it's just important that you keep in mind that the last entry date on your fall entry term is critical for making sure that all your student records are updated for that entry term. Did that make sense about that? That was confusing, or does it help to explain what you need to look at before you know that you're ready?
Yes.
Okay. And Lois and with that too?
Yes.
Okay, I take that as a yes. Okay, so now what should I do before I run the year-end process? I'd actually recommend that you go ahead and evaluate if you need to add some entry terms. And don't forget that your entry terms start in edit validation tables. So you're going to start in this screen to create a new entry term. And then you're going to follow up with adding it in the edit entry terms listing. If you're running enrollment history comparison reports, this is just a heads up that the reports, those comparison reports, use the association code associated with your entry term to know which entry term compares to which other one. So when you're setting your new entry term up in here, be sure that you follow the pattern of the same association code for that entry term. And I'd actually recommend that you follow the same pattern on the start and last entry date too. They're not hard and fast, but the comparison reports will compare better if you use the same date as you see in this setup. We like to see the fall entry term be in the same statistical year as you see, so fall 2017. The start date tells you what year the entry term recruiting is associated with. So in the case of fall, let's look at fall 2018. The start date is 8/26. And so if I look at my statistical year, I see that 8/26 falls within the 2018 statistical year because it starts prior to the start of the 2019, just by one day actually. So we just squeaked in there with the fall entry term being associated with the 2018 statistical year. If you need to see how those entry terms are stacking up in your system, then how they're associated, then you can export to Excel. And if I go and look at that file, the main thing that I'm going to be looking at as I look at these records. Oh, you know what? Shoot. Because I'm on hosted, it doesn't like me. Okay. Our hosted instant doesn't like for us to export to Excel on our local hard drive. I think what I probably should do is just send you an example of what that looks like when you export it so that you can see what pieces in the exported records are important for you to evaluate against. And basically, it looks like this, only it has another column that tells you what statistical year the entry term falls within. And that's the important column that we want you to take a look at. are you familiar, Matt? Does that sound familiar to you, or is that kind of new information for you?
This is the first time I'm doing year-end or any communication plan rollover, so everything's going to be new.
Okay, so I'm going to make sure that you feel comfortable with what I'm telling you about, because I want you to come in here and export that entry term listing and take a look at the records, how they're configured in that listing. Okay?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so assuming that you've looked at all your fall 2018 stages and you think they all look good and that the stage history falls within the last entry date on that entry term, then you're actually ready to go ahead and run the year-end process. And okay, and so the one thing I didn't mention was that you should probably come into this edit statistical years listing and think about adding a new statistical year in here.
Mm-hmm.
And the program is pretty friendly. It's really just going to let you choose between two dates in here. And so it's not going to let you get out of sync with the other ones. And depending upon whether it's a 52-week year or a 53-week year, you're going to select the date accordingly. Okay? Now, I don't have very many records in my database, so I actually can go ahead and run the year-end process for you. But before I do that, let me ask all three of you, do you run comparison reports? Matt, do you run them?
I don't know.
Okay, you probably don't then. Okay. Lois and Roxy, do you run the comparison reports? Okay, they probably have themselves on mute.
I know what you're talking about. I watched your webinar that you
Okay.
did last year.
Okay. Well, if you've been running them, then of course we're going to want you to run the weekly history maintenance.
Mm-hmm. On what day should this be done for week 52? Should this be done like at the end of our 10th day or end of week 52, end of the year?
Well,
because it says end of year.
What happened? Okay, I'm glad you asked that. So this time of year, once I pass that new start date for 2019, when I run this report against week 52, it's actually going to evaluate against 9/30, which is the last entry date on my fall 2018 entry term.
Okay.
So week 52 is going to go all the way to the end of September.
So it's based on what everybody puts for their last day of their entry term.
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's important to remember. And actually, when you run that comparison report, I don't have good data, so we're not going to see decent results in here. But if I run my comparison report, I'm going to have to choose 2018 because I want to see week 52. The weird, actually it gave me week 52. Okay. Mm-hmm. So once you've passed the end of September, it's going to start reflecting the week on the 2019. It's going to be confusing. So if you need some reassurance that what you're doing is right, let us know, because after September the 30th, if I run the week 52 report, it's going to say week 3 or something like that. It's actually
this is Anna. I'm just jumping in. I hope there's not too much static, but I think that one thing to note on the week 52, because it's actually not the 52nd week of the calendar, it's actually fudging the date out to that September 30th in Lorna's database's case, but to your last entry date, you will likely want to run week 52 history more than one. So because you're still getting stage 600s, right? You don't have all your stage 600s updated. Is that correct?
Right.
So it's only going to count what it knows. So if you ran it today, your week 52 weekly history maintenance, it would get all the counts situated for anybody who's moved up to a stage 600 as of today. It would be included in your report. But if you ran the same report next week and you got more stage 600s, those wouldn't be counted unless you ran the week 52 history maintenance again to say, you know, recount everybody because now I've got more people. And it's
Okay, sure.
at the end of the statistical year where you would run a week more than one time is the only time that would happen. And it's because we know that, you know, you don't get your data necessarily on time for every student that becomes a 600. So we give that buffer zone. So week 52 is actually more than 1 week, and you can run that week 52 history maintenance more than one time if you are continuing to want to see your statistical counts updated every week because you got 600s happening after the actual term starts. You need that time and that extra weeks to get the data updated.
Okay.
Okay, so but what is important about that comparison report and before you is that the statistics look good before you run your year-end process. If you're not happy with the statistics and you don't know why they're not good, you should reach out to us and we'll investigate with you. Otherwise, if you think that they look good, you're satisfied that all your stages are updated, then you're really ready to go ahead and run the year-end process. And depending upon how much data you have in your database, I don't have much, so it's going to run really quickly. The reason we want you to have all your users out of the program is that, well, actually, it's not technically required anymore. So if for any reason you really needed to run it, it would be okay.
Okay.
Because the program's no longer updating those students, assuming that you're past that September 30th or whatever that date is for you.
Sure.
Okay. So I just ran it. It ran really quickly. It won't run that quickly for you. But now if I go in here and look at the statistical years, I can see I'm situated in my 2019 statistical year. And I have a new set of enrollment history records that reflect the recruiting that's going to happen for 2019.
Okay.
Did that help to kind of clarify the mystery behind what happens with the year-end process?
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Great. Great. Okay. I think Roxy and Lois probably have that under their belt, so they may have passed on that discussion. So that was just between us and you, Matt.
Okay, thank you.
But any other questions or any other thoughts or anything that you need help with that, as long as we're connected, we can talk to you about?
There probably will be more. As of right now, I just need to do it and get going. Our 10th day is Monday, so I'm going to work it on it later in the week. And
okay.
Yep, that's about it, I guess.
Okay. Well, I'll be in touch. We're going to send you that Excel listing so you can see what I wanted you to evaluate against in your system.
Okay, yeah, that helps.
Then, okay.
I have a couple questions for all of you attending. And that is, did you have the opportunity to look at the videos on EMAS before coming into this session today? Matt, I think you said you watched it.
Yeah, I watched the one from last year, the one that was on at the end of August last year. It was
Great.
specifically just year-end processing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was helpful.
Good. Roxy, Lois, did you all have a chance to review the videos?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
good. The other thing that we're curious about is, was meeting today helpful? And to get your feedback on this format. Is this format something that you think is a good format going forward? How we could do it differently or better? Just really interested in your feedback about, since this is new for us to do our review of the year end and the standard plans as please go look at the videos and then let's get together for a QA session. So open it up to each of you to give us your feedback. What do you think?
Yeah, it was, I don't know. I'm still trying to grasp everything. So almost all of our senior EMAS knowledge has left the university. All of our tech personnel have left the university. Directors that have EMAS experience have left the university. That leaves me with limited back-end experience trying to grasp all of this. So it's kind of tough to give you an analysis right now.
Great. Okay. And Matt, knowing that, don't hesitate to reach out to Lorna and I. Will be glad to connect with you on an individual basis and work with you and assist you with this first year of being the main person to do these processes.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Roxy, how about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was real helpful.
We usually do PowerPoint and more formalized training. Just so we thought maybe this year it would be just better if we just thought that maybe a Q&A would be something to try. So so we appreciate your joining us very much. So.
And Lois, what do you think? Was it helpful? Did you like the format? Do you like the more formal format better, for example? What's your opinion?
I don't see Lois on the participant list anymore.
Oh, she might
Yeah.
have left. I did hear a disconnect. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we wish you a good weekend, a good rest of the day, and thank you for joining us today, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks, Lorna and Anna.
Okay. Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.